recording stuff they shouldn't have been recording. There's yeah. All right, it's running.
Well, good evening, everybody. This is the work session for the Board of Mayor and Alderman for February 23rd, 2021. We're limiting physical access in the meeting room due to the current limitations on public gatherings, but we've made sure that there's opportunities for the public to be able to participate. You can watch it on Franklin TV or the City of Franklin website. You can live stream it to the City of Franklin Facebook and YouTube accounts also. And you can also call in to 1312-626-6799 with a meeting ID at 947-0846, 4627 with a passcode of 79210. Callers will be unmuted and given an opportunity to comment during the meeting at specific times. Limited viewing will be available in the lobby of City Hall. The public may email comments and questions prior to 3:30 p.m. on the day of the meeting to the recorder at franklintn.gov to be read aloud. Live comments and those submitted by email will be limited to 2 minutes. Here's the links that you need: youtube.com/user/City of Franklin. Our Facebook is www.facebook.com/City of Franklin. And the city website, franklintn.gov/Franklin TV. This meeting has been called to order now. We'll call the roll. Vice Mayor Berger.
Here.
Alderman Peterson.
Here.
Alderman Blanton.
Here, sorry.
Alderman McClendon. Alderman Speedy.
Here.
Alderman Schroer.
Here.
Alderman Martin.
Here.
And Alderman Barnhill.
Here.
Okay. Item 1 is consideration of resolution 2021-17 declaring that this Board of Mayor and Aldermen shall meet on February 23rd, 2021 for work session and conduct its essential business by electronic means rather than being required to gather a quorum of the members physically present in the same location because it's necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Alderman Blanton, seconded by Alderman Martin. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. We'll now go to citizen comments. These are for items that are not on the agenda. I do know that we have Steve Minucci joining us tonight that wants to make some brief comments to the board. Do we have any other comments other than his tonight that you're aware of, Angie? We'll welcome Steve and go ahead.
Excellent. Well, first of all, thank you all for serving our city. It's just such a joy to live here and just so thankful for all you do to make it such a great place to live. And I really enjoyed working with Eric, a couple of meetings and talking this through. I've known Tom Miller for several years and never forget my first time, he and Lydia at the Bethlehem United Methodist Church fish fry. And he was, of course, shaking hands and kissing babies. And it was really fun to get to know Tom. And most recently was in him with a CLC group, a men's group that meets weekly. And obviously, having lost Tom, we were thinking of a way to honor him and talked to a number of folks and came up with the concept of naming the entrance to Harlansdale Farm after Tom, whether that's Tom Miller Way, Tom Miller Drive. We haven't really gotten that far in it yet. But the family would be very happy with this. And just based on his service to Franklin, Harlesdale Farm was really his baby, if you will, in really bringing that forward to the city and then working all the way through to make it a reality. And I know I've talked to a number of folks, and obviously we all agree that it's probably one of the centerpieces of Franklin. It certainly is a great way to have people know our city. So I did send an email. I don't know if everyone got that. I don't know that I need to go through that, but basically that is in essence the plan. I'm doing this on behalf of the group of men and obviously also the citizens of Franklin. So happy if there's anything else I need, Eric, that you think, or Mayor Moore, that I need to say, but I appreciate the opportunity to bring this to you and hopefully ask for your consideration of moving this forward.
And Steve will pass that along to staff to identify the process and procedure. I would welcome any comments from aldermen if they'd like to make any. If not, we'll just continue to move forward. And
Mr. Mayor, if I just will add one comment that just may just be of interest from a broader context. One of the things we've been putting some work in on is an update related to a naming policy. Honestly, it was more directed towards some of the naming rights opportunities, especially as we look at our Southeast Park and some of the elements there, but really looking at updating that. And so that could be something that we kind of share with you and get some feedback in parallel with considering this request. So there is a little bit of work that was already going on that this might be helpful in looking at in this context as well, to give you some help, because there's going to be some other things that come along that have naming opportunities that you may want to honor citizens or recognize other elements or important partnerships in the community. So this fits with some work we've already been doing, and we're going to bring to you in the not too distant future. So this can work in conjunction with that.
Mayor?
Alderman Blanton, go ahead.
I want to thank Steve, I'm sorry, I don't want to pronounce your last name incorrectly, for bringing this before us. It's been a time of loss, not only in our previous elected officials, but across the board for everyone, unfortunately. But I think this is an appropriate idea and look forward to seeing where we end up. So thank you so much for bringing this to us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, item number 2 is a presentation of the Tennessee General Assembly updates from Anna Windrow of Windrow Phillips, LLC. Anna, I see you. Good evening.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Well,
Go
Mayor,
ahead and let's.
yeah. Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks. And I was going to say to all of you, as I was looking around to see who was participating, this is a little daunting to be talking to people who know as much about this process as I do. But I do think we have a unique year. And I just sort of wanted to paint the picture of where I think we are and how we have started this particular General Assembly. As Eric knows, I have been doing this, and Shauna probably does too, for over 35 years, and I've never had a start to a new General Assembly like this year. We started with the governor calling a special session, and that was a 2-week process. And then, of course, and that was in the middle of the virus. Then we had the inclement weather last week, which I don't recall ever the General Assembly not going into session in all these years I've talked about because of weather. But this postponed bill readings, first and second readings. And so we really are not getting bills assigned to committees yet because they've got to go through the first and second readings this week. Last week really put us behind and it interrupted the flow of things. I'll have to tell you, the flow of things is a little odd. We had an appointment today on the Senate side, and when you go to the Senate, You have to have an appointment. They have to have your name at the front. A man escorts you to the elevator and goes with you to the 7th floor, lets you out. And when you finish with your appointment, then you go to the elevator and it only goes down to the 1st floor and you're not allowed in the stairwells. We passed one other staff member and one other lobbyist in our visit to the Senate this afternoon. And it's just strange, I'll have to tell you. This is a people business. What we do is based on relationships. And this way of doing business, just like it is for you all, is something we're all trying to learn how to contend with. I was telling Shauna that I think it's almost too early to analyze most of the bills. Tomorrow is the House bill filing deadline. So by tomorrow, if all the Senate bills don't have House bill sponsors, they will be dead. But this way we'll know who both sets of sponsors are on each bill. That'll give us a better sense of what's going to move forward. Once we see the committee assignments, that will also be helpful. In representing local governments for the past several years, we've had a really difficult time as we have tried to speak up for local governments and make sure that you have a seat at the table. The one thing I love about Franklin is that you're close to your members. You have good communication with them, and that is tremendously important. Also, what you say is well respected by some of the seasoned leaders on the state and local government committee on the Senate side and the local government committee on the House side. I think that as things play out over the next several weeks, what we will be doing is looking at the hundreds of bills that we have marked for you all and the other cities that we represent, and trying to determine just which ones will actually move and where we need to spend the political capital that we do. I think that Eric and the mayor and Shauna will all be looking at the bills individually to see which ones have, very serious negative consequences for you. Are there words we can change in amendments to make the bills okay with you, to make things better for you? The volume of what we look at, we as your government relations advocates really can't do that. Your city folks spend a lot of time on this time of year, and we couldn't do without that. So thank all of you inside the city who help us with that, because you can imagine looking at hundreds of bills. Does this affect Franklin more than it does another city? And if so, why? And all those things are important for us to know. In thinking about this session, I wanted to say to you all, there are a couple of things that this start in January and February leads to. I believe that we are looking at a mid-May sort of goal by the leadership for adjournment. I have said over the years, and Shauna's heard me say this, I think you just add 2 weeks on to what the goal is and know that that's when you'll be going home. So I anticipate that sometime before Memorial Day, this General Assembly will adjourn until next year. The budget challenges are very different. You all may have heard this from some of your members. The revenues look better than the state anticipated. There are a lot of reasons for that. One of the things that this leads to when numbers are good, no matter what the governor recommends, as Commissioner Shore knows, everybody wants to spend the money a different way. And there's a great debate about, is all the money really need to go to the rainy day fund? Do we need to divide it up in other ways that are important to the state, to local governments, and to individual legislators and their communities? So I think that the budget will not be just a slam dunk. I think there'll be an enormous amount of discussion about it. And I think Senator Johnson has said to you all that a lot of the extra money that's there is really non-recurring money. So the state is trying very hard not to add programs that they can't fund going forward, but to be very responsible. You're also really lucky since you got the Senate Majority Leader as your senator. It just makes such a difference when you have a voice in the leadership, and that's a pretty wonderful thing. So I just wanted to sort of give you the lay of the land as we see it right now. I think the challenges are yet to come. We have yet to identify what the really big ones are going to be. And we'll be working hard for you on that. If any of you all have any questions now, I'd love to answer them. I don't know that I can on specific bills for all the reasons I've sort of laid out, but Mayor?
Thank you for a great update there. Any questions from the board?
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add a little bit before we jump
Sure,
in on
please.
questions. I just want to make sure we all recognize we do this, not only is Anna working with us, but there's 10 cities of similar size that have city administrators, city managers that really work together with Anna. And it does help kind of magnify our voice and our interests and helps us think through legislative impact together. So that really is a nice added benefit to Anna's support and advocacy, that we also have these partnerships with other similar size cities that have some of the same interests and concerns. Brentwood, a neighbor of ours, is within that group, but other cities similar to us across the state. And so that really does help a lot. And it is a partnership, as Anna described. She is invaluable in helping us navigate and understand what's coming up when and who we should get in front of to make sure our interests are heard and understood. We have great help from our own delegation, but there's all these other legislators across the state that come from different perspectives that have a very important voter voice in the issues that we're looking at. And it helps to get in front of the right folks at the right time. And Anna is invaluable in helping us do that. And Sean, I want to mention how Shauna and Ellen Hansen on her team do a great job of tracking and communicating with Anna and understanding what key legislative items are coming and that we need to get in front of our staff team members. And there are time to time that we share with you that there are things that we're dealing with. And so Anna does a great job helping us, but Shauna does a lot of work. Shauna and Ellen do a lot of work on the staff city side to make sure we're tracking literally these hundreds of bills that may have impact on us. And that important guide in navigating it and helping us understand how to do this is why we have this service in place. And it has helped us. And it's not just in the legislative session. It does come in very helpful sometimes when we're dealing with a regulatory issue to make sure we get in front of the right people there or put together sort of a work group on a topic with maybe other cities or with the right folks in the right state agencies. So it is a service that helps us outside of the legislative session as well. So Shauna, you work with this very closely, more closely than anybody else on the city side. Anything you want to add?
No, I just want to say publicly, thank you to Anna and her group, because like you said, we know our delegation really well, but we don't know the rest of them. And so it's really invaluable to have someone who's on the inside who can help us get into the offices of the right people at the right time.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Mayor, I'd like to just say one more thing. On the Senate side, there is a new chairman this year of Senate State and Local Government Committee, and that is Chairman Richard Briggs from Knoxville. Chairman Briggs is a former county commissioner, as well as being a physician, commander of a hospital in Afghanistan and all kinds of other things. But at least we have a chairman of this very important committee to us that has some local government experience. So I wanted you all to know that. That in and of itself has made me feel really good about Senator Briggs' ascension into the chairmanship role. I think that's good for us. He has already asked to meet with us and ask which cities we have and wanted to talk through exactly the kinds of government that we are with the city administrators and city managers. And we've already had the opportunity to do that.
Mayor, if I could, Anna, nice to see you. I just want to say, follow up with Eric and the mayor and Shauna said. Until I went down to TDOT, I had no earthly idea how complicated this process is. We had a big staff that just went over every single bill that might have any impact with TDOT. Got no help from the governor's office. That was all done through the commissioner's side, and until they told us we could or couldn't support something. But it is daunting, and there's always a question. There's the placeholders that you always wonder what they're really there for, and you got to do some background. So, Anna, you've done a great job, in your years, and I don't know until I went down there that I appreciated the work that a consultant would do in that regard for local agencies. So I know you do a great job, and happy to have you, and I look forward to hearing more about what's going on for the city of Franklin.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead, Alderman Berger. Vice Mayor Berger.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, Anna. Thank you so much. There is, I believe, that there was a bill that's introduced to change the dates of municipal elections to coincide with August primaries and November general elections. It's like House Bill 240. Hang on a minute. I might have it here.
I'm familiar with it.
246, House Bill 246. Do you know anything about that?
Well, it was up last year or the year before.
Yeah.
The local governments push back really hard, and that's why it hasn't become law yet. I don't know anything new yet about this initiative, or if there's a new angle on it. We'll find all that out pretty soon. But we feel like any restrictions, and generally speaking, Eric and Sean and the mayor have taken this position, any restrictions on you as a local government to make decisions that are best for you, period, is sort of what we want. And if there's some compelling reason that you want the state to step in and say, this is when we want you to have the election, that's another matter. But my sense has been that's not the case so far. So we'll kind of analyze where this is, but I think a lot of people weigh in on this, and it is very important that happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's a serious, I mean, it has a serious discussion every time it's up. It's serious. So we'll pay attention. Already are.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
And as Anna has said, there are hundreds of bills up there, I guess thousands, and they're currently in the process of analyzing. And I don't think we're here tonight to try to analyze every single bill. I wanted to make sure everybody knew who Anna was, and philosophically how she works for the city, and the relationship she has not only with us, but with some other cities similar to us. So
how do you, Mr. Mayor, how do you want, and Eric, how do you want this handled if we find, because I've been reviewing some of these bills and looking at some of them. So if we have some questions on them, or do you want us to shoot those through you and you shoot them to Anna?
Just share, I would just say share them with myself and with me and Shauna.
Okay.
And we probably already have it on our list, but we're glad to check. And we always check on status of if it's coming up in a committee or where it might be. And as Anna kind of indicated, there's some that never go anywhere, and there are others that all of a sudden get real legs and they become something we got to really engage in. So that is an ever evolving situation. So that's helpful. If you see something or interested in something, we can make sure it's on our list. And also sometimes there's clarifications about if it's going anywhere, and sometimes it has other things going on with it other than than that caption or that initial piece that you see. Sometimes there's
Right.
other wrinkles to it.
And then sometimes, we find that there's a simple edit that could be done to make it better or less intrusive sometimes to the city government. So,
Right.
all right, thank you very much.
Okay, if it's okay with everybody, we'll continue to move on and we'll go to development activity report. You gonna do that, Alex?
Yes, sir.
Good,
Yes, sir.
welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, board. Thanks for giving us a few minutes tonight. I'm going to take the first couple slides of the development activity report. And then Kelly Dannenfelser will take the next slide dealing with the planning report. Next slide, please. So as we evaluated 2020, we wanted to evaluate it against 2019 to kind of see where we landed. It was a challenging year. Ended up being very productive for the whole team and for the city as a whole. I wanted to start with a number that's really not listed on here, and it's the total number of permits issued. In 2020 was actually 6,272 permits issued compared to 2019, which was 6,198. So we actually issued 74 more permits last year than the year prior. So with that being said, we'll get into the numbers a little bit. And they will go back and forth. It may not make sense, but I'll give you the overall percentages at the end. So total construction valuation, this is always a good one to look at. That's total investment in our community. In 2020, almost 480 million. 2019, right at 538 million. That was just over a 10% drop in construction investment or development investment. Another number we like to look at is total number of dwelling units, that's permitted dwelling units. 2020, 946 total. 2019, 1,101. Single family construction remained fairly constant. There was a significant drop in multifamily, about a 40% drop. And then we saw a large increase in townhome permits, about an 87% increase in townhome permits issued. Next slide, please. This slide deals with revenues collected throughout 2020. 2020, as far as permit fees, building valuation fee, 2.236 million compared to 2019, 2.71 million. That was a 1.5% decrease from 19 to 20. You'll see that 1.5% again here at the very end of this slide. Road impact fees and facilities taxes collected. 2020, just over 8 million. 2019, just over 9.5 million. And then water and sewer fees, we saw a large increase, 4.5 million compared to 2019, 3.2 million. When you add up all those fees collected throughout those three categories, 2019 was just over 15 million in fees collected. And then 2020 was 14.7, give or take a few dollars, $1 million. That was a 1.5% decrease from 19 to 20 in total in just these categories of fees collected. The next slide will be the planning report. Kelly.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, sir. Yep.
I was wondering, I just sat through the budget and water and sewer kind of came up and it was minus. I thought that total wise it might be short, but can you explain why water and sewer fees went up and all the other fees went down? Is there, in the building permits went down, not large, but but they did go down. What did we didn't increase any fees that I'm aware of.
Yes, sir. Part of the variable fees that you're seeing, and in particular the water and sewer fees, and I kind of took a hard look at that today. What I can attribute that to is the number of townhome units went up by 87.5%. Those are single meter units. Therefore, we collect a set of water and sewer fees across the board for townhome units. There were some large commercial projects that came out in 2020. So those are larger water and sewer fees as well. And that's really the best I can tell you after my evaluation this afternoon of that exact number was that the separate fees collected for each townhome unit, that number went way up. And then there was some commercial projects that attributed to that
Can
number.
you flip back to the previous slide real quick for me? Yeah. So I was just looking at that. While that might be, it did go up by a large percentage townhomes, but that's still not a big number. Anyway, I don't know. It's something you might look at a little bit deeper to see if there's any reason for that.
Yes, sir. I'll be glad to take a further look at that for you and get you that
Thank you, Mayor.
information.
And Alderman Schroer, I would say it does probably reflect, as Alex said, that the number and types of meters, because our current impact fee structure is driven by the number of meters and the types of meters. And that's actually something we're looking at as we update that fee structure to go to more of a uniform unit based as opposed to the types and numbers of meters. So that probably is what's driving it, the unique composition of those meters, but we certainly can get a little more detail on that.
I think as you go forward and try to readjust what those fees ought to be, having that information would be vitally important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks, Mayor.
Yes, sir. I'll get you that information. The next slide will be the planning report. Kelly will take that one for us.
Thank you, Alex. This information provides the development applications that went to the Planning Commission or DRT for review between the 2 years. And the number of applications generally stayed the same with 10 fewer applications in 2020 overall. The number of plan amendments increased in 2020. The rezoning and development plans decreased somewhat, but everything else stayed generally the same. The review fees also decreased in accordance with the rezoning and development plan decreased because those are the applications that really that are more costly to review. Staff is going to give a more detailed overview of the 2020 development report on Thursday night at the Joint Conceptual Workshop. And it can be accessed right now at an easy link, www.franklintn.gov/development report. Staff was able to get it out in record time this year, a month earlier, and it has some really informational stats in there for you to look at. So we encourage you to attend that meeting on Thursday night for the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. The final slide is a link we always put up. This is a direct link to all of our developer reports, mapping and such that is out on our city website for anybody to access. I'm glad to take any questions if you have them. It was a very good year. A lot of questions as everybody got month over month to be a very productive and a very secure. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Are there any questions for Alex?
I have a question and maybe a
Go ahead,
comment.
Alderman Blanton.
So Alex or Kelly, on the final report that went before the planning report, can you define what a special permit is as it relates to planning? I mean, I know there weren't any applications either this year or last year, but I just would love to know what that might look like.
That's a great question, and it's going to be taken off of the planning report next year because we no longer have that in our zoning ordinance.
Well, my mind immediately goes to an event situation, which obviously that wouldn't work here, but I'm like, what could a special permit be? So thank you.
Sure.
And then comment, going back to the first slide, personally, I am encouraged to see a decrease in multifamily. And a question would be, and I may sound ignorant, but does townhome always refer to home ownership, or can that typically be rental too? In my mind, townhomes are more permanent residents than rentals.
Yes, Alderman Blanton, for the most part, townhomes are owned by a individual.
Okay.
There are certain types of developments to where they're deemed as condominiums and
Right.
they can or can't be rented or owned by a larger entity, but I'd say 90% of them are individually owned.
Okay. Well, I go back to my pleasure in having more single family homes and townhomes, because I think having home ownership in our community it makes for a more invested citizen. So thank you.
Mayor,
Go ahead, Alderman Martin.
Alex, about the rental and the ownership. But if you do own the townhome, you can rent it unless it's something in the homeowner's manual that says they can't be rented, because really and truly you can rent anything.
Yes, ma'am. Yep. So I think to Alderman Blanton's question was, yes, the majority are owned and lived in by the same person, but yes, you have the ability to rent those to whomever you'd like to. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, could I add something that was talked about?
Absolutely.
The development report that will be seen at the joint Alderman Planning Commission meeting has a lot more information on it, and you'll be astonished to see how many more multifamily have been approved. It's gigantic.
I would second that. Thank you for that report. It's very helpful for us to see that. And I would just throw something out just because it's in the report. It's not a part of this discussion, but I do have a question on when we're going to reevaluate and bring up to date our road impact fees. I don't think they've been touched since 2014. And I think every 5 years, we're supposed to reevaluate those. Correct me if I'm wrong, but just want to throw that out there for our consideration. Thank you.
Yeah, we're in the process of bringing that forward here soon. It's about a 3 to 4 year cycle that we try to bring it back to you, and we're due for that. So that it will be coming up here in the near term.
Yeah, I don't think we've done it since 14. So
I think you enacted it after that, but yeah, it's time.
All right. Yeah, I'll talk to you later. Thanks.
And one final comment I think that's going to be shown on the development report on Thursday is, I believe since 2017, we've only approved maybe 64 single family residences. So I think that inventory is probably shrinking.
I believe it's a little bit higher than that, but we have looked at the past 3 years and only 6% or less each year of the total dwelling units approved have been single family. Just to give you a little teaser for Thursday night.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a question.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Are we going to be looking at that on Thursday night about the balance and seeing how many rentals, how many apartments we're building here, and getting a good handle on that? Because I know Kelly, I'd asked for some numbers on that, and I was told we'd be addressing that in February. We're going to be talking about that Thursday night, correct?
Yes, that's the kind of information that's in the report, a breakdown of dwelling unit types this year, looking at our existing housing stock versus what's our approved housing stock and what that might look like at build out based on what's approved.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of information is what we'll cover on Thursday.
Well, I think it's really important that our board show up for that meeting, because we really do need to get a handle on how many apartments are being built. We have, on one hand, an abundance of apartments being built and an abundance of hotels being built. And we have to start asking ourselves some hard questions. I'm not one to believe in a moratorium at all, but I do believe that we need to tap down some of this and take a look at what our numbers are and the percentage. Thank you very much. I'll see you on Thursday night for that.
Okay, we'll keep moving on and we'll go to Sustainability Commission update regarding a draft policy guide on energy conservation and renewable energy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm here with Dana Coase, who has chaired the commission for the last 4 years, to talk about the energy policy guide. Last spring, the commission identified their top 3 priorities. Those are energy, waste reduction, and transportation and mobility. One of our now former commissioners, Mike Leonard, suggested we create concise policy documents for each of these topics. And this is the first one that we've taken on. On the one-page policy guide, you'll see 2 charts on the right-hand side of the page. And one of them is a summary of overall municipal electricity usage and cost, and the other is a categorized breakdown by facility type. I would like to give a shout out to the finance department. Caleb Stoner and Angelique Franzoni before him, they track every utility bill that comes through, and there are a lot of them. And they make it very convenient to pull information. 2008 was the first year that we documented energy usage and costs. And it was a very laborious and time-consuming process to track all this information. In 2008, the city spent about $2.6 million on electricity, and we're now at 2021, so 13 years later, despite adding a lot of new services, like a police headquarters and new public works, new fire halls, an upgraded water plant on Lewisburg Pike, many traffic signals and cameras, countless streetlights, and other services. All that to say, the overall usage and costs have only slightly increased over the years. And this is a credit to the conservation and efficiency efforts we've undertaken to manage these costs, and also our good working relationship with Middle Tennessee Electric. Dana Coase, the chair of the commission, is going to describe the policy objectives and then walk you through the action items.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I hope you can all see me. My Zoom screen went completely black, so apologize for that. I can't see anyone, but I hope you can see me. So the objective of the Energy Conservation and Renewable Energy Guide is, City of Franklin is committed to evaluating energy projects that make fiscal and environmental sense. It's also positioned really to make policy changes to encourage our community and the city to advance energy efficient and renewable energy technologies. So with that, the action items that we would like to take as a commission, the first item here is to reduce streetlight energy usage by converting all streetlights to LED, and for new streetlights, require LEDs as well. It's been an ongoing effort led by Andrew over the last several years. So it's a continuation of that effort. It's been going well and really saving operating costs for the city. The second action item is evaluating renewable energy and energy saving measures for the new city hall. We've already started conversations with staff and the design team for City Hall, and we will continue this involvement throughout the design process to make sure that we have a sustainable new City Hall, but not overspend or spend in areas where it doesn't make sense. The third action item is to complete comprehensive energy audits of all city-owned buildings with a focus on reducing energy cost. These audits, like is stated in the action item, will identify ways save energy and reduce the energy costs to the city. There may be avenues to partner with Middle Tennessee Electric and Tennessee Valley Authority to get assistance with the cost of these audits. The fourth action item is to evaluate future uses for the 200 kilowatt solar project. So this project was completed in 2012. And as of right now, all power is sold back to the grid. There may come a time when it's more advantageous for the city to use the power instead of selling it back. So we'd like to evaluate those future uses to make sure that we save the most money for the city. The fifth action item is to complete a comprehensive study of the municipal fleet with a focus on fuel cost reduction. So similar to the building study, we'd like to look at the municipal fleet to see if there are ways to reduce fuel consumption and thus reduce the cost associated with that fuel. The sixth action item is to evaluate the impacts of requiring new residential dwellings to have a 240 volt outlet, most likely in their garage, for the potential of installation of electric vehicle equipment. Electric vehicles are becoming more mainstream. I own one myself. We think it could be prudent for the city to require that new residential dwellings have this 240 volt outlet in the garage. Based on my experience, it would have a minimal impact on the building of a new home. We'd like to evaluate what that impact is for new construction and consider making a recommendation to require all new home construction to have a 240 volt outlet. The seventh action item is to consider updating the residential energy code to 2018 IECC, which is the International Energy Conservation Code. Right now, the commercial energy code has been updated. We'd like the city to consider updating it for residential as well. The city of Nashville recently updated their residential energy code to the 2018 IECC. There were some concerns from the home building community in Nashville, but they were able to work through them, and confident that we could work through those concerns as well for the Franklin Residential Energy Code. The eighth action item is to utilize social media and conventional media channels to inform the public about the city's energy efforts. For the past couple of years, the Sustainability Commission has worked with the city communications staff regarding messaging for recycling. We'd like to expand those efforts to address energy and energy reduction as well. And then last but not least, our timing of the discussion today was well timed with Anna's presentation. We'd like to act as an advocate to state legislature for energy related policies. So over the last couple of years, the state legislature has considered energy related policies. We'd like to review these policies and consider providing our feedback to the state legislature on behalf of the city. So those are the action items. I think our next steps, we'd love to gather feedback from the board. Thank you for listening. We appreciate your thoughts now as time might allow. If you have additional thoughts, we'd love to gather them in the next couple of weeks and then draft a resolution for the board to endorse on a future voting agenda.
Alderman Martin, but I'm going to make a quick comment, if I might, that want to thank Dana for leading this commission. She's done a great job, and Andrew has been the staff person for this commission since its formation. And Alderman Berger, or Vice Mayor Berger rather, sits on that commission as a representative for the board. And I applaud their efforts, and particularly the efforts to save the city money so we can put those funds elsewhere. And I think that if you look from 2008 to 2021, that's a lot of savings. So Alderman Martin, I'll recognize you.
I also applaud the report and Andrew, I thank you for all you've done since you've been here. I just want to say this, I am all for saving money, but I don't ever want us to see Franklin, Tennessee being in the same situation that they're in Texas. And I know this is all the sustainability and the renewable energy and all this is the buzzwords, but let's don't forget that we have to have plan B. We can't go totally off the beaten path, the tried and true path. And I would support furthering your efforts, Andrew and Dana, but I really don't want to see us get in a mess. Thank
you. And I think that's really kind of a separate issue. We work and look at reliability and redundancy and our power supplies to key elements of our functions, water plant, et cetera, police department, fire stations, et cetera. So I think that's a very different topic than what I think the commission is bringing to you. It's something we take very seriously, but really is a different facet in terms of making sure we've got the right level of reliability and dual feeds at key locations and other things that help us work through any potential disruptions. And we look at where we have generators, all these other things that help us maintain and sustain our services. So we hear you, but I don't know that I would equate what you were just presented with that other work that we do.
And I do appreciate that, and I understand that, but I also think that the officials in Texas didn't allow for emergencies, and I just don't. I'm not saying that's where we're headed, but I don't want us to overlook the possibility that we could end up like that.
Mr. Mayor, I have a comment.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Thank you for appointing me to the commission. I didn't really know what to expect when I first got on there, but I would say that if you remember back, we all remember back when John Shore was mayor, and I remember, Mr. Mayor, you went to him and asked him about starting the Sustainability Commission, and the credit goes to you from starting that commission, which became a committee, which became a commission. And sitting on that is, I would say, Margaret, I hear you. I totally 100% get what you're saying. Of course, Texas, there's more circumstances down there that meets the eye, but we have to be careful when we say green energy and all these other things, all the buzzwords, as you said. And I would say that the experience I've had on the commission is the people are dead serious about how do we save money and do it fiscally responsibly. And so we look at, does this actually doing something or implementing something cost more than the savings that we'll have long term? And I would say that our commission is extremely good at looking at that and saying, no, we're only going to do smart things that actually do save us money in the long run and actually do pay off quickly and not burden us for a long time, and that are smart, not so much as you said, Margaret, like buzzwords. Is the green energy kind of thing, does it sound good? Is it something that we should do? But no, we really, this committee, this commission, I think there's, Mr. Mayor, you've pointed some great people on that commission, because they really get down to brass tacks and they do their research and they do their homework and they come in well prepared. And Andrew does a great job with that group as well. And I just want to say that, be assured that I think that we are on the right path and we are looking at things fiscally responsibly. Thanks.
Anybody else?
Mayor, yes.
Go ahead, Alderman Barnhill.
I was also listening intently to Alderman Martin's comments, and I think that she certainly has some valid concerns. I have no objections whatsoever to us looking at energy and cost savings and what not. The one thing that I did hear out of this right here was the, I guess, mandatory 240 plug in every new house unit or whatever being built. And I question whether or not, I really question whether or not the committee has looked at that thoroughly and to see what's involved. Because I don't think every electric car even has to have a 240 or 230 plug in. It just takes longer, or 120 or 115. So need to look at that, and also understand the concerns that Alderman Martin have and some of the others of us have in solar panels and wind panels and all the other stuff that's supposed to be the buzzword now with the Green New Deal and all this other environmental stuff that's going on. So make sure that you've done your homework and you've looked at these situations and understand that there's still a lot of people out in the old world today that are very concerned about the direction and all electric automobiles and all the other stuff that we've got going on. So understand that, but continue to do the good work that you're doing so far.
Thank you, Alderman Barnhill. Anybody else? If not, we'll keep moving on. And thank you for being with us tonight, Dana, and appreciate your work. Item 5. Yeah, you're welcome. Item 5 is consideration of certificate of compliance for wine and grocery store for Trader Joe's, number 792. Trader Joe's East Inc., located at 545 Cool Springs Boulevard, Suite 115, Franklin, Tennessee, 37068. And then it talks about the managers. Any questions about that? They've fulfilled all the requirements. Is that correct, Ms. Benny? Any questions about that? That'll be good news for somebody. Item 6 is a contract 2021-0024 professional services agreement between the City of Franklin and Town Planning and Urban Design Collaborative LLC for completion of illustrative graphical imaging services in connection with the city's historical design guidelines update. Who's going to do that? Amanda or Kelly?
I am happy to speak to that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. And I think I won the prize so far for the longest caption. So thank you. This is the professional services agreement that the Planning and Sustainability Department would like to propose to complete graphical imagery for our new historic district design guidelines, which is currently underway. We did work with the TPUDC group with the zoning ordinance and feel that the scope of services is really sufficient in order to fully relay to the benefit of the community the intent of the design guidelines for our historic districts. Thank you, and let me know if you have any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 7. Resolution 2021-24, resolution authorizing a coordinated study of land use, infrastructure, and the roadway network for the Goose Creek Basin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a resolution endorsing a coordinated study of land use, infrastructure, and roadway network for Goose Creek. Staff presented some information at the Joint Conceptual Workshop last month and received favorable feedback for it. We have a slightly abbreviated version of the presentation tonight that highlights the need for this study. And Michael, if you could please pull that up. You'll hear from various staff members, including myself, Amy Diaz-Barriga, Paul Holzen, Ben McNeil, Andrew Orr, and Vernon Girth. Next slide, please. So as an overview, the city has studied the urban growth boundary as a whole over the last many years now and has recommendations in Envision Franklin about strategic growth and annexation and orderly provision of services. Next slide. development suitability was modeled that shows a gradient from green to red, green being more suitable for development, red less. Next slide, please. Staff also studied each of the drainage basins in the UGB to identify the city's capability to annex and provide services for those. Goose Creek is in the southeast part. It's the bottom right of the screen, and it shows up as green for development suitability and short-term for annexation capability. And staff is recommending that a more specific basin study be conducted to coordinate the specifics of the land use, right sizing the infrastructure, and designing the road network to accommodate the annexation that we have done in the past couple of years. So I'll turn it over to Amy Diaz-Barriga for more details.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Kelly. If you guys would mind going to the next slide. Just to point out sort of why this area is a topic of discussion right now is a lot of the area is zoned regional commercial. We've also been making, as a city, have been making investments in the area with the new fire station, the Long Lane overpass, and the water facility. And we've also annexed about 815 acres. So it's an area prime for development and folks are knocking on our door. However, we have been pressured as staff to provide answers that we don't have. Part of the reason is that much of this area was outside the urban growth boundary. So we just don't, our plans don't factor in a lot of this area. But beyond that, there's a lot of other questions that I can go over quickly. Next slide, please. You know, questions that we've been asked are, will there be an additional interchange on I-65? How will that impact the future land uses? Can we start anywhere, anytime, or do we need to have a phasing plan? What's the capacity of our current infrastructure plans? Will the new clean water facility allow for more density? What sort of natural features should we preserve? How do the contours of the area affect infrastructure and development potential? Will our impact fees help offset the cost of the needed improvements? And does more land need to be annexed before infrastructure can be extended or improved? These are all great questions, but staff doesn't have the answer. And I think the biggest question we're getting asked is, can development begin without these questions being resolved? If you could just look at those questions for a second, you'll see how complex they are. And staff's recommendation is no, we should not begin development. We really should try to answer these questions somehow. And Paul and Ben are going to go a little bit more into detail as to why, how complex these questions are. So I think Paul's next. If Michael, you want to go to the next slide, please.
It would help if I'd unmute. Next slide, please. So what do we know about our major thoroughfare plan in roadway infrastructure out here? Is the one project that is funded is the Long Lane overpass. We have agreements with developers to make more improvements on Goose Creek and Paytonsville Road. And a lot of the other infrastructure is planned and being driven by development. In an ideal world, you know, people talk about this being the next Cool Springs. A big difference is Cool Springs is served by multiple interchange. This has really one interchange, the Goose Creek interchange, that serves this entire area. Through the traffic impact studies that we're seeing as it relates to the three quadrants of Berry Farms, you know, we're already seeing projected failure at the interchange and the signals along Goose Creek. So we really need to do more of a comprehensive study of the traffic network. We need to continue to discuss a potential interchange with TDOT. I can tell you to date, they've not been excited about the opportunity for an interchange here, just given its location to a system interchange like 840. But the economic development, the traffic numbers, we believe need to be factored into that. We need to look at the congestion, and we want to continue that conversation with them. The other thing is we have developers wanting to move some of the roadways as we have them planned. Well, I certainly don't want to move a roadway without having an engaged conversation with all of the impacted residents and presenting that to our board of mayor and aldermen. So this study will help us have those discussions. And the other thing is we want to make sure we right size our infrastructure as it relates to roadway capacity and size. We don't want to overbuild it, but at the same time, we don't want to underbuild it. And so there's a lot of questions to be answered, and a lot of density coming in, and having this comprehensive study will help us make those decisions and spend our money wisely in this area and work with developers to build this infrastructure. And with that said, I want to turn it over to Ben McNeil.
Thank you, Paul. To kind of piggyback off what Paul talked about, the current interceptor plans that we have here in the city of Franklin for this particular area were based off of the 2004 small area plan. And staff's not really had the ability to dig into this location and determine what the potential sizing for interceptors and things like that are going to be. Obviously, we've looked at properties as they've built out and sized those interceptors appropriately. But looking at this particular area, we want to make sure that, as Paul said, we don't oversize or undersize the infrastructure as it relates to sewer for the area. Along with that, we have to be able to determine if the downstream interceptors are sized appropriately as well. Increased densities would obviously require some upsizing of that. Another potential concern that we have is today the Red Wing lift station that serves this general area, we're nearing capacity as we've granted availability for sewer in the area. So that's a potential concern. And then our clean water facility, which is going on the side of 65 there, we really need to be able to determine the sizing and what that looks like as we start our permitting phasing and look towards construction. So those are some of the concerns, and we'll talk a little more on the next slide. What we hope to gain from this is essentially to be able to figure out what the sub-basin interceptors are to be sized at appropriately, and the same with the downstream interceptors. And then as we talked about the clean water facility, additional densities could obviously impact that. And as far as our permit timing and construction timeline, we want to be efficient with that. So the more time that we can spend to make sure that we're on target with that, obviously the better off that we're going to be. And then, the big thing for this one is today's impact fees are not going to cover the overall price tag for the infrastructure that would be planned. So what we need to do is figure out what that looks like with this study and how we accomplish that. Back to you, Amy.
I can take it from here, Ben. And Michael, you can go to the next slide. We need to be sure that we engage all of the local utility providers, Middle Tennessee Electric, Atmos Energy, and Mill Crofton. We engaged them last year after the first round of annexations outside of the UGB occurred. We need to continue to coordinate with them. You go to the next slide, Michael. This is the Envision Franklin design concepts and map. The newly annexed parcels have not been assigned design concepts. Back in the fall, as the parcels were going through the referendum process and going through that annexation process, we put together a schedule and a timeline for updating Envision Franklin, but we started to get hung up on some of the questions and issues that have been brought up. So our preference is to take a step back and look holistically at the whole basin. And part of that is getting an understanding of how much more we're going to grow and annex in this area. You can go to the last slide. There are a variety of benefits for doing a coordinated study. The main reason is to answer some of the questions that Amy brought up on an earlier slide. The area is outside of the urban growth boundary, so we haven't planned for how to adequately serve the area. And it's our desire to right-size the infrastructure, as Paul mentioned, and plan the land uses and associated densities accordingly. We still do not know if a second I-65 interchange will be approved, and we need to better understand the future street network and how it's going to lay out and how it's going to be funded. We would also like to expand the public outreach efforts to include all the property owners in the southeast part of this Goose Creek Basin, and hopefully streamline future annexation requests. There are a lot of unanswered questions, and we're seeking your support to help us plan accordingly. Resolution 2021-24 would authorize the staff to move forward and select a consultant and initiate that hiring process in anticipation that funds would be budgeted in the upcoming fiscal year. With that, I'll turn it over to Vernon for any final comments.
Thank you, Andrew, Kelly, Amy, Paul, and Ben. Wonderful job and wonderful explanation. And the uniqueness of this particular situation is, as has been pointed out, we've had dozens of property owners request annexation, and we've annexed the property. And we have many, many more asking to do the same. In other words, there's not one developer able to master plan this area, such as a large part of Cool Springs. That's why we need a coordinated study. Amy so eloquently put that property owners are knocking on our door, not only to annex and request development, they're already asking, what will the city do to help install the infrastructure? Well, that's not something we expect to do. And we want to take a comprehensive look at this area and help ensure that we manage growth in this area that reflects the same type of development and community planning that Franklin is well known for. Finally, when a property owner and their design team approach the city, we use at least 4 guiding documents to help them on their way. Envision Franklin, our land use plan, our drainage basin plans, our master park plan and greenway plan, and our transportation and major thoroughfare plan, Connect Franklin. Without having those documents up to date and us holding true to them, it's hard to give guidance and promote orderly growth. And that's the support we're looking for you in this area of our community going forward. Thank you again, team. Wonderful job in explaining and justifying why we're seeking the Alderman support, and want to get a little bit head start on it before the budget's approved in a couple months. Thank you.
Okay, great presentation, staff, and thank you for that. Any comments or questions from the board? I'm going to pull the trigger and move to item 8 then. City of Franklin Contract 2021-0028, Professional Services Agreement with Los Design for design revisions for the FSSD ball fields reconstruction, lump sum of $60,200.
This is simply a professional services agreement for the Franklin Special School District ball field reconstruction that we're doing. We had bid this project out. It came in significantly over budget, unfortunately, and so we're taking a step back to value engineer it, and we've been working with Franklin Special School District to do that, and this will get us to where we can go back to bid and look to award construction starting this summer. Happy to answer any questions.
Seeing none, we'll keep moving on. Item 9 is City of Franklin Contract number 2020-0123, Parkland Construction and Dedication Agreement with Vintage Franklin LLC for property known as the Vintage at Watson Glen PUD subdivision.
Thank you, Mayor. This agreement came before you in September of last year. They have lowered the density from 245 to 241, which changed the original agreement. So therefore, we're bringing back the agreement, the amended agreement before you this evening. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
No questions. We'll move to item 10, which is City of Franklin Contract 2021-0006 with the Community Housing Partnership to construct a new single-family home on the surplus lot at the corner of Natchez and Granberry Streets, and for the home to be sold to a low or moderate income household.
Go ahead, Eric.
Go ahead, Kathleen, if you're ready.
Well, this is the
corner lot at Natchez and Granbury that the city, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen declared surplus, and we put it out for bid. We had only one reply from Community Housing Partnership, and meeting with staff, engineering, planning, traffic, we came up with a pretty viable design for the lot. They will be awarded $50,000 in CBDO funds as a reimbursement. It will be a single-family home sold with deed restrictions of 20 years. And it's just really exciting that it'll be a very primary spot for people to see how forward-thinking Franklin is. Any questions?
It is a unique piece of property, and so they've worked together to how to make that fit on that site, and they put a good amount of work to try to see how that can be viable. It's not going to be a very large home, but it'll be someone's home here in Franklin, and it's a great partnership with Community Housing Partnership.
I can't wait to see the design.
Mayor,
Alderman Martin.
you mentioned, Kathleen, the design. Can we see a picture of it?
Sure. Can I send, Tom, do you have what I sent you today? I can get that.
I can
Yes.
send it. I can send it to you as part of our weekly update if you'd like.
Yeah, it's not an official application yet because they haven't submitted their application for the building permit. So
It's a rough draft of a house we came up with.
I would like to see it. Thank you.
I'll send that along to you as part of our board update.
Any other questions or comments? Item 11, Amendment 1 to City of Franklin Contract 2020-0122, the interlocal fiber sharing agreement between the City of Franklin and Williamson County. Any questions about that? Item 12, we're gonna not do that tonight. Staff's still working on that.
Yeah, we will bring that to you at a future work session. We need a little more time on that. There's a lot of detail associated with that.
So unless there's other business, we're gonna adjourn this meeting and we'll see you back at 7 o'clock. Thanks, everybody.